Hi, and welcome to Spirit Rescue Talk. I am your host, Amy Major, but I'm sure you've noticed something a little different today. I used to do Spirit Rescue Talk. I think I did it about a year ago. I'm revamping Spirit Rescue Talk with a wonderful lineup of new hosts that have all decided to be crazy along with me to talk about all the weird stuff that, I like to talk about. I want to introduce Melinda Wolfram. We have Gigi Breakville and Cynthia Maroon. They're all gracious enough to be co-hosts with me, and we're really here to kind of discuss a lot of different paranormal and spiritual, metaphysical subjects. But we just want to let you know, try not to use this as a form of education, as a replacement of. We just want to let you guys know that these are our opinions. This is advice. This is suggestions from all the experiences that we have been through. But just follow up with your own personal teacher or reach out to one of us if you're looking for individual training to be able to create more of a journey for yourself, your own individual experiences, and how you can master your own abilities. We're here to help you in every way we can. Speaking of your abilities, today we're actually going to discuss our individual paths, just doing a little bit of a recap from things that we've discussed in the past on Spirit Rescue Talk, giving a little bit of that intro to where we've been, how we got where we are, and then some of the signs and symptoms to let you know if you're a psychic or medium, or one of my favorite, rescue medium, because that's my thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about us, tell you our stories, and see if this is right for you. So Melinda, how did you get to where you are today?
Well, let's see. It started when I was young, and my name's Melinda Wolfram, and so I do a lot of the psychic investigation work. So I work with law enforcement, I work with families of missing, and the way I got into that, I started out, of course, I was seeing spirits, and they were coming to me wanting me to help them over. Some of them were darker spirits. And so, no matter what the spirit was, whether it was light, dark, or in between, I always was there to help them. And so then I started, working on doing like individual readings for people. And that led into me, I went into law enforcement. I was a dispatcher. And so then that's when I started seeing things as far as the missing. And that was a little bit, I wasn't for sure to say anything because, whenever you're doing that type of work and you start telling them, law enforcement stuff, they're like, how do you know that? So that was one of the things that was one of the hardest things for me to overcome. But finally, I just decided, hey, this is something that I'm supposed to do. And in between all of that, I met Amy and I did take a class of hers about rescue mediumship. And that's when I started using the techniques that Amy had demonstrated to us, and it goes hand in hand. No matter what we're doing, it goes hand in hand because you're going to deal with light, you're going to deal with dark. And so with the experience that I had as far as helping law enforcement and families on missing people, some definitely in that line of work you're going to see some things that come about. And with the training I got from Amy with rescue mediumship, it all just tied in. So, I mean, that's how, I just started seeing spirit when I was younger, and I just kept developing into it, and I did never want to lose it because, we all can do it, but we have to keep ourselves open to do that. So, but that's how I got started.
So you said you were seeing spirits. Does that mean you were seeing them physically out in front of you, or were you seeing them with your third eye? Describe a little bit about how you were kind of seeing these spirits.
So basically, the very first one I seen it was actually a full apparition, and I didn't understand it. And what it was when it came to me, it was warning me about my own health.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that. I was like 7, 8 years old when it happened. And I didn't understand what was going on. And I was like trying to tell I won't say family, it was people that raised me, about this is what I was seeing. And then within 24 hours, I was rushed to the hospital and I did pass briefly. And so that's when I realized what was happening. So that,
Wow.
yeah, that was the first, that's how I really, really knew.
And I gotta ask, because I'm sure the girls are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. These near-death experiences, they have a tendency to open you up even more. Did you find maybe your gifts kind of started, after that experience and just got stronger from it? Do you think it had any effect?
I do. That happened to me when I was about 7.5. And then when I was 18 and I had my son, I had another experience, near-death experience.
One
And
wasn't enough?
yeah, I know. It was just Amy, girls, you would not believe. It was just that one. I was like, it was just a totally different experience. And the two times that it's happened, I do feel it has made a major impact. It's made me see things a lot, how do I say this, more vivid from the other side.
Wow. Wow. That's
So yeah,
amazing. I'd love to talk one day just on near-death experiences. I'm gonna write
yes,
that one down because my husband had a near-death experience and the things that he experienced as well right before he met me, go figure. And so I think that it's an awakening for a lot of
yes.
people, to really kind of push them on that spiritual journey. So we're definitely gonna dig more if you're okay with it. I know it could be kind of tragic for a lot of people, but I think there's many people out there that have experienced that near death experience and they come back with some profound
Yeah.
stories that are so amazing and I'd love to hear more. I know you girls would too as well. So thank you for sharing that, Gigi. How'd
Thank
you
Oh,
get where you are today?
I'm so happy to be here. Such beautiful, beautiful souls sitting here today with us. So my name is Gigi Breakville. My native name is Bamosa Spiwi Key, which is Walks with the Earth. I am Micmac, Abenaki, Mayan, and Cherokee. Those are the strongest ones. Our family history and lineage is filled with a lot of native. Um, I Actually, my parents became aware that I had abilities when I was about 3. And by 4, my mother told me that there was a little ghost girl I was playing with because my mom would talk to me about it and I would describe everything. And I vaguely remember it, but the girl disappeared after a couple days and she had left. So the ability to see the spirits have always been there. Um, when I was put into Christian kindergarten, I was punished a lot for talking about my visions and my visions with God. And my parents were called in, and my father's sister, who's my aunt, actually called him and said, "You've got to tell her to stop sharing this with people." Um, and she was a healer. She was also a shamanic healer, like I am. Um, and so my parents had to sit down and talk to me. They said, it's okay to discuss it with us, but you can't discuss it with anybody else. And like Melinda, I too had a near-death experience just after turning 5. Um, I've had several near-death experiences within the last 2 to 3 years. Um, I know I'm kind of going all over the place with this.
I'm
I'm just,
loving it.
and it's true. It's a near-death experience is actually what we call in the shamanic world a shamanic, it's like a shamanic initiation. Um, I actually, while I was really sick in bed, had the veil lift. And I felt like I was walking through a waiting room, but there was an endless waiting room and there were people there. And they were all talking. And I had one woman who had her arms crossed and was tapping her foot and looking at me like, what's taking you so long? And I had to actually, when I was well, I went back and I moved everybody on because they were all in my space here, waiting for me to help them move on. Um, Jumping to what I can do, as I said, I'm a shamanic healing practitioner. I practice the traditional way of the shamanism from thousands of years ago. I'm also an animal communicator. I am also a psychic medium, and I'm sure there's a few other things in there that I haven't really come across, that I haven't really talked about, but I help where I'm guided to. A lot of times I'm helping within other tribes. I'm helping within my own tribe as much as I can. A lot of times I'm helping. Moving spirits on is a constant with me. Not only do I move the spirits on, but also I have the ability to heal them before they move on, if it's needed, to help guide them. I don't know what else to tell you at this point.
I'm
It's just,
really
I'm like, I
curious.
know I'm missing stuff.
I'm just so curious about that experience. You said, so in your near-death experience, you came to this waiting room and they were all earthbound.
They were earthbound. They were earthbound spirits. Everything was brightly colored. There were energy grids on the floor. And I remember a woman with blonde hair. She was talking. It's almost as if she were casually sitting at a table talking to somebody. And as I walked by, she looked at me and she smiled. And I actually had to go to my shamanic mentor and say, "What the heck happened?" And she says, "The veil lifted. They are waiting for you to help them move on."
Wow.
So not only do I have people that come to me, the spiritual people, the spirits, but the spirits of animals. I'm trying to think what else I was going to say.
It's amazing that these spirits know who we are before we do.
It's that beacon of light that we carry with us. Now, I have seen full apparitions. My husband and I toured the Winchester house, for example, and we were on the top floor as the tour started. And I bent down to tie my shoe, and when I straightened up, there was an old man next to me. And he had on a gray shirt, button-down shirt, and he had suspenders, and he had trousers, made of some type of cloth. And I looked at him, I said, "Oh, excuse me." And I stepped because I thought I was too close. And then I turned to him again, and there was no one there.
Wow.
So occasionally I will have that happen.
Yeah. They'll follow us. They know what we do, and they can feel us out miles, if not countries away.
Yes.
And but it's very interesting that they were all sitting there waiting for you to have you help them, because time doesn't exist on the other side. So they're sitting there going, any day now, because
The one woman was just like arms crossed, and she's like at me, and I'm like, what did I do something? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
we're definitely going to have to discuss that later, because it's like, I know a lot of people are going to have questions like, well, why are they just sitting there waiting? Why isn't anyone from the spirit world stepping in to help them? And it kind of goes into contracts, it goes into duties and responsibilities, their vibration, what they can see, what they're receptive to. And there's a lot of information that we could discuss in further shows, but that's awesome to bring that up. So I think we're going to have some really good discussions with that.
And you know what, Gigi, what I really like is that you're highlighting that, on the other side, there is still a sense of self that is different. There's still personality. Some people think that when we pass, we may become in a certain state and lose elements of who we are or that sense of self. But you're describing that there were still traits that people carried and it persisted even though they transitioned.
Yes. Thank you.
We'll have a lot to discuss about that too.
Yeah.
There's too many things to discuss, but don't worry, we'll stick around for a long time. Just keep watching. So Cynthia, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Maroon, and I just want to note that ever since I first met Melinda, she's always called me Cindy. And for some reason, it just feels right to me. And I just keep doing it. Like, just keep calling me Cindy. And it feels good when you do that. And I don't want you one day to go, oh my gosh, I've been calling her Cindy all this time or something like that. It just feels right that you call me that. My family calls me that. My very good long-term friends call me that. So since I was little, that was primarily how people referred to me. So I think it's really sweet, actually.
Well, I've seen it above your head, so that's why I went with it. So
I could feel it.
So for myself, I primarily have found myself into a position where I tend to spend a lot of time focusing on spiritual protection. But I also, just in tandem with that, focus a lot on transforming suffering in energetic ways. And when you mentioned at the beginning, Amy, about how what are the signs, what are the symptoms that you can look for to kind of know that maybe this is a journey that's calling to you. For myself, when I was younger, I didn't see spirit. I didn't see spirit with my eyes. I didn't see it with my third eye. I wasn't getting visits at night, anything like that. But man, did I have an interest in a lot of stuff. I had an interest in communicating with spirit and wanting to play around with that stuff, in reading books on channeling. And this started in grade school. And I found myself reading really advanced channeling information. And there was just something in me that was desperate to like absorb this knowledge. And I just knew that if I read it, even if I didn't understand, there was something in me that was learning. And I found that it felt natural at the time. But when I look back at it as an adult, I'm like, it's a little weird. I'm like 13, like, reading these books. But, I didn't have anybody else around me that was really interested in these things. So it can be a bit of an isolating journey at times, for sure. But then, it's like spirit kind of sprinkled people in my life, in my family and my friends that I could talk to about these things. I also was really like interested in things like psychic ability. And I was just very young, even wanting to practice like on my friends and say, let me see what I can, figure out about you or something like that. And it was, always hiding behind, I'm just playing, I'm just playing around. This is just fun, because that felt safer. Growing up, not all kids are very nice. They could be really honest, and you want to feel a sense of safety among your peers. And, I can understand for some people that have more pronounced abilities, it can be pretty overwhelming and confusing even at times. But that kind of interest in the world of spirit even persisted, as I got into high school. But I went to a Catholic type of high school, and there was a lot of focus on religion and spirituality and fellowship and prayer and those kind of things. But I found that one religion didn't satisfy me, that I was really curious about world religions. And so getting into studying different types of faiths, and I found myself feeling invigorated learning about these topics. That's another sign, that maybe you're really on path with something, that it doesn't deplete you when you learn about it. You actually feel invigorated by it and excited, or you get that spark of like creativity and you get these ideas. And, but I didn't fit anywhere. I was like, oh, does this fit? Or maybe it's this one, maybe it's that one. But nothing seemed to really settle. And I just found myself realizing that the creator, from my perspective, is the definition of diversity. And why would such a wonderfully complex creator make everything the same? If you look around in nature, even within the same type of plant or the same type of animal kingdom, there's diversity even within them. Why would anything be the same? That would limit the expression of light and of God. So I was like, there is a reason and a purpose that it all is supposed to be here. And we're not all supposed to be the same. We're all supposed to be very different. And so for myself, I choose to not be in conflict with what's different. Because who am I to say that that doesn't have a valid, important reason why it has to exist, even if it falls into the realm of what people would call dark? And so that's another topic for another day as well. But when I got into my adult years, I started getting into angel stuff a little bit. I became curious about that. I became a Reiki practitioner because I did addiction counseling for many, many years, working with people who went through so much trauma and has so much suffering. And I just found that words didn't really reach all wounds. And talking about it didn't, really always clear something for somebody. So I started searching for energetic ways to help people transform. And that's where I settled. That's what felt like most in alignment with my gifts, is being able to use things like, my intuition with interactive visualizations that I would guide somebody on, or using emotional freedom technique, while focusing on the things that are distressing us, to help people transform really deep-seated, challenging issues where they've gone to other providers and they've tried different ways, and they're just looking for new experiences in the hopes to get relief and to be able to get some peace back into their life. And most importantly, why I find it so rewarding, and I want to say this, is I started to feel like, by doing these type of interventions with people and seeing how they were transforming, it felt like I was gifting them through guidance their power back to them. A lot of the time there's, two types of suffering in the world from my perspective: natural and man-made. We're here on this human journey, and yes, we're going to get ill sometimes. That's part of natural suffering. And, people are going to pass. That's part of natural suffering. We are wired to feel pain. That is part of natural suffering, like physical pain. But then there is a more disturbing type of suffering that is man-made. And this is the type of suffering that when people choose to bring harm to another person. And that type of pain, especially if it's from people who are supposed to love you, is really, really difficult to wrap your head around, and can severely impact your ability to form trusting and meaningful relationships with others. And it really spoke to me to want to help people reclaim that sense of power back from someone who may have taken it from them through an experience, so that they can inhale again and stop holding their breath. So, Melinda was talking about her journey in connecting with Amy, and that's kind of where I found myself as well. I brought all of those different types of experiences with me, and then started reading Amy's books. And I read it, and I say this every time, and I'm going to say it again for everybody, who is joining us today, that reading her material started to kind of like unlock things in my awareness. And all of a sudden, even though I primarily had, sometimes people hear about the clairs of, psychic ability. And so for myself, I didn't see things. So I wasn't really seeing clairvoyantly, but I had a lot of intuition around clairsentience, which is like those feelings, being able to recognize feelings in others, even though they might not be expressing them to me, or using the feelings in myself as a guiding light. And then also claircognizance, which is just knowing, and I think that's probably was my strongest ability, is just having this sense of knowing something. But when I read Amy's book, it was like, ooh, let's unlock some clairvoyance, shall we? Let's unlock some other stuff. And I remember going to work one day, and somebody was showing up for treatment, and it was a live-in addiction rehab facility. And someone was showing up for treatment, and they were getting out of the cab with their luggage in tow. And I just looked at them, and then all of a sudden I could see and recognize that they had a spirit that was attached to them in their energy. And I also recognized that it saw me back. Mm-hmm. And I thought, whoo,
Mhm.
this is different. And I'm trying to just keep it, normal for this lovely lady that's coming to treatment to get help, right? And that was a really, really profound experience, because it's something I knew. I wasn't making up. It happened to me. I wasn't imagining that situation occurring. It happened to me and I reacted to it. And so it kind of went from there, led me to teaching, and to the teachings of Amy, and also learning through her rescue mediumship training, and all the way up to spirit rescue specialist, and learning about attachment removal and house clearings and all those kinds of things. And it just, like Melinda mentioned too, everybody can do these things. It's just a matter of practicing, being open to it, and developing and giving yourself permission. And maybe this is a topic for another day, but it is a huge journey of self-trust. It is a huge journey of self-trust. And I hope that we have time to kind of explore that for people. I think it's something that should really have time and be talked about. So yeah.
Yeah, that self-trust thing, that I think that was probably my biggest hurdle to overcome. Because it's like I'm sitting and I'm listening to all of you, and you're like, you've all were breadcrumbed into the journey of, oh, let's just give her a little bit of this, let's give her a little bit of that. And but from a very early age, you all were very more aware that you guys were on a spiritual and intuitive path. I have to say, my path was very different. Now, if you can look up in the encyclopedia the word stubborn or reluctant, you would see my face. Because my journey of my self-discovery was so prolonged, and it took such a long time because I did not trust myself. And I think there's a lot of people that are sitting and they're listening or they're watching and they're like, oh, I can relate to that. Oh, I can relate to that. Well, I'm going to relate to all y'all that haven't set up this belief system in yourself that said, no, 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 not me. No, 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 no. All these other things I'm experiencing, those are just coincidences. I'm going to let y'all know something. This means something. And to tell you a little bit about my journey, my experience, might help you better understand your own. Because I grew up in a very agnostic family. They didn't talk about God, they didn't talk about spirit, they didn't talk about anything. Even though my mom was medium, she would every now and then say, oh, I was just talking to your dead grandmother and we were having a conversation. I'm just like, okay, Ma. I was not believing it at all. And so kind of raised with the idea or the theory that if you talk to dead people, then you're kind of crazy. It's crazy talk in my family. So nobody talked about it. Nobody really discussed anything. But growing up, I had a lot of experiences, such as, being able to have those invisible friends. My brothers and sisters would sit at, because I had a walk-in closet, and I would sit and I would play at like 4 or 5 years old, even a little bit older. And I was sitting and I'd talk to my invisible friend, and they would giggle at the door going, now Amy's going loopy again, or Amy's doing the weird stuff again, because we didn't discuss it. It was something that was considered wrong in my family. From there, I would have a lot of past life dreams. I would have a lot of astral travel, which I didn't know was astral travel at the time. I would see my animal totem walking with me when I'm a kid. But the most profound experience I had was hearing the voices of my guides since I was 2 or 3 years old. And I would have conversations with them, and however best you can when you're a kid. Most of the time they would really come in and reassure me that everything's going to be okay, because I had a really hard childhood. And not only was my mom a medium, but she also had bipolar disorder. So she had rages and she had a lot of fits. And so that's why I thought the mediumship had to do with the mental illness. So I kind of just pushed it away. And my family pushed it away as well, until I feel in my teens and late teens, my guides were starting to get a little impatient with me. And yes, guides can get impatient with you. especially if you're as stubborn as I am, because I just like, nope, nope, did not make any connection of my abilities and what I was doing to anything psychic or mediumship. It wasn't even in my awareness. And this was the 1970s and 80s, where, there was a lot of people in the New Age communities talking about it, but I had no connection to the New Age communities. I had no idea what this was. The only thing that I'd ever see were movies where you'd have a psychic that kind of looked like a gypsy or a witch, and she had a crystal ball, and she's like, oh, telling you your future. And I'm like, oh, I thought it was really, really kind of interesting. And they do the tarot cards with the mystical nature of everything, and I'm just like, it was felt so woo-woo to me that I like never ever connected myself to that type of genre. The only thing that I felt really connected to was spirituality and God. I had to watch every movie there was about heaven or guides or the afterlife because I felt such a connection. I used to actually go to my friend's house on Saturday nights. I could sleep over so I can go to church with them on Sunday. Yeah, a lot of people are going to parties. Me, as a teenager, I wanted to go to church. That immediately tells you there's something weird with me. So I'm going to church. I'm not telling my family because they wouldn't understand. I signed up for the Methodist church in the town I lived in because my mom was Methodist, my father was Jewish, but nobody talked about religion at home. Started connecting to the churches, still made no connection to the voices in the church and spirituality. I was as dense as you got, okay? Dense. It isn't hitting it. I'm not getting it. Until years later, which I'm writing in my book right now, an astrology reading woke me up. And it had to take something in black and white, squiggly lines all over, for someone to say, you're a psychic. And I still didn't believe it. I'm like, you're nuts. You're crazy. I don't believe you. Prove it. That's what I would always say. Prove it. And she's like, well, these are things you're going to want to develop. I didn't believe it until the voices came back. I would pass by a psychic center every day because I had to pass by it going home. Coincidence there? I don't think so. But I'd have to pass by a psychic center in the town I lived in, and the voices were like, you need to go in. You need to go in. You need to go in. And I'm like, no, I'm not going in. I don't want to go in. I have nothing. I don't want anything to do with this psychic stuff. When you start having arguments with voices in your head, you have to question that a little bit. I didn't, because I'd been talking to them my whole life, and I connected the voices in my head to my inner dialogue. This was like little Jiminy Cricket on my shoulder. That's what I grew up with in the 80s. Little Jiminy Cricket saying, this is your conscious. We're telling you what to do. Nowhere did I ever imagine these were dead people talking to me, whispering in my ear. I didn't see anything. I didn't experience anything. Things weren't flying around. There wasn't anything lights flickering. Sure, I grew up in a haunted house, but that's another story. But unaware was my story, just not knowing what was going on. And most of you are like, oh, these little coincidences, and oh, I just see things out of the corner of my eye on occasion, or I just hear that whisper every now and then, or I just get that sensation every now and then. But I'm not a psychic. Yeah. And the reason is because everybody is. Everybody is. We actually have the psychic imprint in our DNA. We cannot not be psychic because it is embedded in our DNA. Another story there. But we actually have the programming to be psychic. Some people just choose to ignore it, like I did. Some people choose to embrace it, like we all have now. But every single person watching and every single person not watching, you're all psychic. So just get used to that concept. The whole mediumship thing. Still not aware, but I did walk into that psychic center. And guess what? They laid out the cards. They looked at them, they looked at me, they looked at the cards again. The first thing out of their mouth, so you know you're psychic. And I thought I was gonna drop to the ground because I'm like, how? How can I be psychic if I have no clue my whole life that I'm a psychic? I'm like, do I look like a gypsy? Do I look like I'm like from the Wizard of Oz? Do I look like I have a crystal ball? And that was very biased opinion based on what the movies taught us when we were younger. I grew up watching a lot of TV. It was my best friend, okay? I watched a lot of TV and a lot of movies. So that was my form of education about the New Age community. But when I did finally start connecting to the Psychic Center, my gifts started exploding. And it has started to really enhance because I was now aware and accepted the fact that I had these abilities, which was probably the green light of saying, she's in it, she's available, she's agreeing to this. Because the moment you set intention, the energy starts rolling in that direction. And when I did accept it, the whole spirit world, I felt rejoiced and said, okay, throw them at her. Because the moment I woke up, the door opened up and I was swarmed by all of these spirits. So I just want to let you know, if you're still somewhere in the closet of saying I'm not a psychic or medium, and you open up that door and say, here I am, be prepared for what's on the other side of that door. You don't know what's coming in. You don't know who's prepared and sitting there and waiting. Like Gigi said, she had a room full of spirits waiting for her and going like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? They're sitting, waiting for us to become aware and for us to get our act together and start working. So those of you watching that may not be aware of your abilities, that's perfectly fine, because you don't find your abilities. Your abilities find you. You're born with them. That doesn't mean that you can't enhance other abilities as you develop, because we have them all. You're going to hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm a clairvoyant, or I'm clairsentient, or I'm an empath. The truth is you're everything. It's whatever you choose to focus on at that moment and whatever your energy needs to be at that moment. It's kind of like you're a diamond with many facets, and you just choose to shine a light on one of those facets at the moment, and that's shining the brightest. It doesn't mean there aren't other facets and other places to look in and other places for you to grow abilities from. It just means that's what you're deciding to set intention on, and it gets enhanced at that moment. So when I did finally, and I gotta say finally, because it wasn't even that moment after I stepped in the Psychic Center, you think I would have been totally fine with it at that point. But no, the reluctant Amy Major still didn't want to do it. But my guides kept pushing me and kept pushing me till I found the spiritualist church, and I found my mentor, and I found people that were in a circle that could help me develop and feel comfortable with my abilities, because I grew up believing that they were wrong. I grew up believing that they meant I was crazy. I grew up believing that people would judge me for those abilities. So I resisted. I resisted like you couldn't even imagine. I resisted for years. And when I say years, I mean years. Like my guides had to pull me kicking and screaming into situations. They kept saying, you could do it, you could do it. And I'm like, nah, ain't gonna do it. No, not me. It took about 5 years before I finally was like, I've been doing readings, I'm connecting to spirit, I'm going to development circles. About the 5-year mark, I finally said, well, maybe I'm a medium. Yeah, I'm that bad. So you might actually want to dabble in this, dabble in that, dabble in them all. We keep thinking that we have a limitation to our abilities. What we do is we put ourselves in a box and say, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I've expressed so far in my life. And these are the experiences that I've had, which tell me this is who I am. We like to identify ourselves as a singular, more restricted unit. It filters through the ego, and the ego says this is who you are, because having that identity grounds us here in the third dimension. So we like to be put in boxes, even though there's so many people say, I'm a free spirit and you can't tell me what to do. Yet you keep saying, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Well, what do you think you just did to yourself? You just put yourself in a box. So I'm here to take you out of the box and let you know you are everything. You cannot not be everything, because you are nothing more than an extension of God, which is everything. You choose through your own conscious choice and your free will what you want to focus on at this moment in time. And it might be things that are just drawn to you. It might be things that just land in your lap. It might be things that the spirits or voices or anything tells you is good for you right now. It's okay, because it's good for you right now. But stop holding on to it so tightly, saying, this is me and I can't change and everybody needs to know who I am. It is who you are right now. 10 years from now, you might be something else. You might be different, and that's okay. Because if you're everything, then you can be everything. And I think we need to eliminate the fear of thinking that we're not this, we're not that, we're limited to this. I am whatever you tell me to be. We have to have, like Cynthia said, faith in ourselves. But in order to have faith in ourselves, we need to know who we are, what we're capable of. Because the moment we take away our limitations, the restrictions, the ceiling we put above ourselves, and we start recognizing that we are more than we can possibly imagine, squeezed in an itty little bitty space we call a body, that limits our awareness of ourselves. But the more you expand your energy beyond your physical body, the more you start recognizing you are so much more. And you can be whatever you want to be. The choice is yours through your own will. So I'm here now as a psychic, don't like the term, as a medium, as a rescue medium, only because I have trained and specialized in those fields. Doesn't mean I'm not other things, because I'm also a channeler. I do automatic writing. I do trance channel. A lot of people don't know that about me. I do energy healing work, attachment removal. I talk to celestial beings. I even talk to aliens. Don't get me started. But I talk to a lot of people. Why? Because I can. Because I recognize we are everything, and everything is us. And whatever our heart's desire chooses at that moment is who you can become. So if you're sitting here, you're listening, you're like, oh, some of this is starting to make sense. Good. Because this is just the beginning. We're going to talk about a lot of subjects, about all the things that we've experienced ourselves, but we're also here to open your mind. We're here to help you challenge your restrictions, your resistance, your challenges. We're here to help you grow and to become more aware of what else is out there so you can make the right decisions for you and know that it's possible. So I want to discuss a little bit with the girls. What are some signs, symptoms, occurrences that can happen to you that says, oh, maybe I'm a psychic, which you are, which everybody is. You know, and it's interesting, years ago, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, I'm not naming names because I love everybody. Cynthia's like, right.
I'm waiting. Go ahead.
I had arguments with a few mediums years ago. They kept claiming you have to be born a medium in order to do this work. And I'm like, wow, doesn't that restrict everybody from being able to do this work when it's so wonderful and so spiritual? And, you know, why would we tell somebody no when it's such a wonderful experience? It didn't sit right with me. So, of course, I'd go home, I'd sit in meditation, get out my pencil and paper, and I'd start automatic writing because I did that when I was younger. It was so much fun. And I'd ask my guides. So, out of curiosity, was I born a medium? Kind of going, I'm feeling pretty good within myself. I'm feeling, yeah, I was born a medium. I'm like, patting my self on the back. And the answer that came through really surprised me, but opened my eyes. And it was a very short, very quick answer. And their answer was, you are a medium and you decided to be born.
Mm.
And it was a very weird answer, but when I read the energy of the answer, it was, everyone's a medium, and those that are here decided to be born. A medium is nothing more than one soul talking to another soul. One soul talking to a collective of souls. You cannot be anything other than a medium, because that means we're disconnected from spirit and we're disconnected from ourselves as a collective spirit. That doesn't mean that you come in with the natural ability to be able to do it, even though we kind of do, but you have to learn how to go back to who you really are. Because this world has a really great way of scaring us and making us feel we're doing something wrong when we're hearing things or seeing things or experiencing things that are very natural to the human soul. But then the world says, no, you're wrong, you're delusional, there's something wrong with you, and we shut it down. And I think with this podcast and others and many people that are really reaching out to the masses, we're kind of saying, let go of your fear of being who you are naturally. We're all mediums. We all have the ability to connect to spirit. It's all whether you decide to focus on it, enhance it, and have it be part of your life. You don't have to. And that's the really great thing about free will, is you get to decide. We all decided that we wanted to do it because it meant something to us. It sparked a nerve in our heart that said, this feels so good, this feels so right for our independent journeys. So we all decided to enhance it and to really focus on it and take it on as a big part of our experience here. But you don't have to, you don't need to, but Spirit would like you to, because there's nothing better than connection. We're connected whether we're in a physical body or not in a physical body. So I just want everyone to know, you're a psychic, you're a medium, naturally. And I want everybody to know that we're going to point out just a handful of symptoms, experiences, and the things that can happen to you, but they're nothing more than just reminders of who you are. And they pop up on occasion saying, are you sure you don't want to deal with this? Are you sure you don't want to pay attention to that? They're natural responses of your soul and of your psychic senses. You decide whether you're going to listen or not. And I know Melinda was talking a lot about being able to see spirit. No, I didn't see spirit when I was a kid. Thank goodness for that, because let me tell you, working in rescue mediumship with all the heavy spirits, if I had seen them and had the hard childhood, I probably would have like a twitch, like a nervousness, or I would probably, be where my great grandmother went to when she was in a mental institution for 40 years, cover her mediumship. And I don't think I would have been able to handle being able to see that. So I had a limitation of what my guides would allow me to experience just for my own self-protection. But you said that you were seeing spirits. Like, did you have any other symptoms, or what we call the clear abilities? Did you have anything else happen that kind of said, I think I've got a spiritual experience going on here?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I seen the full apparition. I went through a situation where one of my, well, in school, there was one of our fellow students that passed away in a car accident. And, I seen her sitting at her desk. But then I was having dreams. I would have a lot of dreams. I would be woke up in the middle of the night and I would see things in my dreams. And the other thing that I started noticing that I was experiencing was auras. And it wasn't just auras around people, but it was around trees and, anything that was of nature, the animals. So that's the three things that I had the most experience with.
Can
As
you explain what the aura looked like? Because there's many, probably people here to go, well, what is an aura? And two, what do they look like? So I know if I'm experiencing that or not.
So basically, in my experience, an aura, like it was different. The aura was different for a human than it was a tree, or it was different for between trees and plants. So like with humans, it varied. Sometimes I would see very beautiful colors around people. Other times I would see very dark grays and blacks around people. And what I started experiencing that, I started learning that, well, usually if they had something gray around in their aura or black, then they were not doing things in the right way as far as they were on the darker side. As
So
far
you
as
recognize those colors meant something.
exactly, I started noticing like this person, he had a dark aura around him. So, and he was like mean to children. So I started associating colors with people. And like with the trees, I would see like it was really hard to explain. It was like a clearing that was like open, sort of like the white light, and it gave like a radiance. It would like move. It was like breathing, I guess is the way I
Hmm.
should say it.
Yep.
And then with the rocks and the plants, everything was different as far as the aura. Like the plant, like there was a flower, if it was pink, it would show me like a dark pink, and then it would come out lighter and lighter. So it was a varied on what kind of plant it was.
Hmm.
Uh, so it was all different. The rocks, I would see browns a lot around the rocks.
But you
And
also noticed that when it came to nature or things that were more connected, that didn't have a lot of emotion stuff, that they were more fixed auras that didn't
right.
really change that much. And as people do note, because we have different types of auras, there's two types. There's something called a fixed and something called immutable. So things like rocks and plants and trees and things that are inanimate objects will carry what we call a fixed aura. It doesn't change unless it comes in contact with another aura that may stimulate a vibrational change in that aura. But people, animals, some plants actually that have a
Hmm.
higher consciousness and elements sometimes having what we call mutable aura, which means it changes along with the emotions and thoughts and actions of that individual or animal. And so the aura changes color along with the changes of the person. So seeing auras is a great thing. I saw it too when I was a kid, and I thought there was something wrong with my eyes, to the point where my parents got my eyes checked because I kept saying, "Why is this person blue?"
Exactly. That exactly what happened to me too. It was very, very, it was a learning experience, but at the same time, the people that raised me, they were not, they didn't believe and they thought there was something bad wrong with me too. So,
Which is a clairvoyant
right.
ability, which has to
Exactly.
do with the eyes. So yeah,
Mhm.
you had a lot of clairvoyant experiences, which is really great because that's the one ability I really wanted as a kid. Not when I was really young, where I had a lot of ghosty
Right.
stuff going on, but when I got older, I'm like, ooh, I want to see, I want to see, I want to see. And then I heard spirits like, but you didn't ask to see. You asked to hear. And I'm like, I changed my mind. I want it all type of thing, which we
Right.
can. We have
Hmm.
different experiences as we develop. But Gigi, you said that you had a lot of other experiences, but I think you were seeing and hearing and feeling. Tell us a little bit about your sensations.
I was not only seeing, I was hearing a lot. I was getting touched a lot, and I'm not meaning inappropriately. But since I was a child, and I developed the habit of pulling my covers over my head as protection to protect my whole body, to which I still do to this day. But I
Wow.
can still feel, like occasionally I'll feel a hand on my back or
Did
on
you
my
ever have
arm.
that sensation of something crawling up your bed at night? Like,
Nothing like that. I was constantly touched. I was just
yeah.
constantly touched all the time. As a child, there was always something in my room. I'd go and I'd wake my mom or dad up and I'd say, there's something in my room. And
Mm.
like one time my mom would say, do you want me to come in there with you? And I said, no, I'm going to be okay. God will take care of me. Because I was in Catholic school at that time. So there was a lot of hearing. There was a lot of feeling of being touched. Um, and the hearing wasn't just voices. I could hear somebody walking. I could hear them moving dishes around. On occasion, when we were living in Massachusetts, um, I had the weirdest experience that I still kind of blows my mind. I was standing at the stove cooking, and I happened to look up, and the dial started turning on its own.
Nice.
It was turning to an up position. I'm going, what the heck? And I was paying attention, and I freaked out, you know, because it's not something I see very often. And a day later, that burner blew.
Wow.
So there's all these different signs that do come to you, and they not only come to you through the dreams, like Belinda said, because I've had some dreams, but I've also, like, I remember my husband and I going to a psychic fair in Massachusetts, and I sat down for a reading, which I don't normally do. I don't like having readings done. I don't know what my problem is with that. But the first thing the guy looked at me and he said, "You're a psychic medium." And I said, "No." I sounded like you. No, I'm not. And he said, "Yes, you are." He said, "Actually, you should be on this side of the table doing the reading." And I just kind of looked at me, he says, "Your abilities are those that are similar to Teresa Caputo." And at that time, like, who's Teresa Caputo? So I didn't know things, I didn't know I was taking trainings and classes and things like that, to help me cope with it because it's a lot to try and handle on your own. But there were all these different signs, and I still continue to have the signs show up. I do have all the clairs. And a lot of times, because my husband and I love antique furniture, so I learned very quickly, very, very quickly in an antique store to place my hands on the furniture and communicate and see if there were a spirit with that. Was that their favorite desk? Okay, I really like this desk too. Would you be willing to leave it? Or, if you do come to our home, are you going to stay with this desk? And there are times when we brought stuff home and then my husband would get deployed and I'm waking up to things moving and walking around, and it's freaky. It's scary. It's really scary. But it's
Right.
part of what we're being told is, hey, you've got the abilities. This is who you are.
Yeah. No, I know you have a lot of energetic protection, and you have quite a few, animal totems and ancestors that kind of work with you. Me, I would never touch anything in an antique store physically because then it would transfer the energy right into me. So I would learn to step into the aura of the object and read it that way without physically touching it. So you're very brave, kind of going in and touching, because the moment I would touch something, within an instant, I've got an attachment.
Oh,
Because
wow. Yeah, I
nice,
haven't
no,
had that
could you
happen.
please? Yeah, but you've got the protectors that can do that, but I'm saying not everybody who's listening is
Right.
going to have those protectors. So
And yes.
it's
Go ahead.
having just a little bit of that protection. We are going to talk a lot about protection here that you may not hear from other psychics or mediums, because there's a lot of people out there that believe that the dark doesn't exist, or that negative things don't happen, or just put the white light of protection around you and you're going to be just fine. All three of those are bogus, false.
Yeah.
And we will talk a lot about why that's not true, but what you can do to protect yourself during.
It's absolutely crucial. I agree with you. It is crucial to have protection. And there have been a couple times when I've had people contact me and they're like, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. Well, and they're trying to connect to the spirits. Well, have you cleared your space? Well, no. Okay. Did you set up intention? Well, no. Well, what did you do? Tell me what you did. Tell me what your steps are. Oh, I just said I'd like to connect to anybody out there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, no, please. Telling you that's equivalent to leaving your door open in your home and just saying, anybody come in. Come in, help yourself, take whatever you want and go.
Yeah, if you're not going to do it physically here in the real world, don't do it in the spirit world either. And a lot
And,
of people do that through, like you said, the Ouija boards. They do that the same way as well, which we'll probably discuss quite a bit. Yes.
And in all fairness to, like, you know, the people that are doing those kind of things, I mean, Gigi is right. It is like leaving your front door open. But let's tease apart this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with your desire to want to connect and to be so open and to be craving that, to that experience. That's okay. But at the same time, we all, if you don't fully know what you're opening the door to, we're just saying educate yourself through somebody, you know, whether it's reaching out to us or it's somebody that you're already working with. Start asking the right questions. You know I talked a little bit in my journey about some of the clairs that were developing for me and stuff like that, but one of the other things that you might experience is changes in energy around you. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's really frequent that I hear people who are developing talk about feeling very anxious often. And it's because they may not be able, like Amy was saying, or like I was saying, you know, like to be able to see what's around them, but you feel it. So then you're like, but you can't see it. So it's like, what is this? And you're still working on discernment to figure out, is this something that is friendly that's coming into my space, or is this something that doesn't have friendly intention? And being able to discern that, but it all just feels anxious in the beginning sometimes, you know. And so that's a sign to kind of look for. The other thing that I experienced is a lot of actual, like Gigi was mentioning, physical things happening around me, like with technology. So, you know, I'm staying with, you know, a friend, and all of a sudden certain things, you know, radios are like Bluetooth connected radios are going off on their own in the middle of the night. Or I remember a time where my keys were hanging off of my purse, and it was on the table, and we were sitting in the living room, and my keys just start jingling by themselves on the table. Or I'm in a car with somebody, and all of a sudden they're, you know, they're using their cell phone in order to find their way in a direction, and all of a sudden it starts doing things it's never done before. So like all of these kind of things, and you know, people can get nervous and say, oh, what's around me? Meanwhile, it might be their own energy. You know, there's physical mediumship where you impact the things that are around you with your energy, and things around you like to use that, your energy, for those kind of activities. I just want to circle back into self-trust a little bit, because what we're doing here today is we're creating a safe space for you to be able to figure this stuff out. You know, it's really hard. You know, Melinda talked about her experience, how she didn't have the support, you know, that she deserved, you know, when she was entering into these unfamiliar new waters. And it was always, always, always important to Amy. And she said this over and over again when I met her, how important it was to have a community where people can actually safely talk about these things and feel respected. And I think there is a really unrealistic expectation as someone who is developing their gifts. And the expectation is you should never make a mistake or it's not real. And that is a terrible thing to have to endure, because the reality is, if I was learning a new language and I wasn't pronouncing it correctly, or I didn't know a word for something, I would be shown grace because I'm learning a new language, because everybody knows what that is. But when people aren't connected to their own gifts and you're trying to learn, and they're like, oh, well, prove it. Well, do this, we'll do that. Like you're just some show. And it's like, that's not fair. People are learning and they need a safe place. And we have to move away from this idea that you are expected, if it's genuine, to do it perfectly. That's bull. You know, you're going to make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of evolving. And going back to what Amy said before, give yourself permission to be different. Give yourself permission to change. It doesn't mean you don't know yourself. Just stay authentic. That's knowing yourself. being honest. So that's what I would say about that.
And I think that's amazing to say, because there is a lot of expectation, of things that you see in the TV and movies and that's how people learn how they're supposed to be as a medium or a psychic or any other modality, is they base their experience to somebody else's experience. And if it doesn't match, then they think they're doing something wrong or they're not good enough. And there's a lot of self-judgment there with this. And people need to be reminded that there's a lot of editing going on with a lot of these shows. There's a lot of superficial information coming through that may not be accurate. And there is not a single psychic medium or any other light worker out there that is 100% accurate. We can't be, because it has to filter through our belief systems, our biases, our judgments, our systems, our patterns, and what we're allowing ourselves to know or believe at the time. And those do muddy the waters. They get in the way of the natural link and the natural channel. And we do create that resistance when we are trying to read energy. And that's so normal. It's so normal and okay to do that when you're learning, and even when you're a seasoned vet doing this work, because guess what? We're human. We do that. But there is a lot of expectation from, I would say, the public. The moment you say you're a medium, everyone expects you to be the same type of medium. Everyone expects you to be the medium on the stage doing spirit messages from your family in the light. And I have to say, that's only one form of mediumship. If that's not the type of mediumship you do, it doesn't mean you're not a medium.
Right.
It just means you're not that type of medium. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to go through, is every time someone say I'm a medium, I placed an expectation on my skill set to say, okay, let me connect to mom, dad, brother, sister on the other side. But instead, the moment I opened up, I was swarmed with earthbound spirits. I kept pushing them away, saying, no, this isn't the right, other mediums are telling me this is bad. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I really did a lot of self-judgment in that, because my expectation was to do what all the other mediums were doing at the time. But that wasn't me. Even though I could, even though I can, even though I will on occasion do that type of mediumship, I kept getting a pushback from my guides saying, what are you doing? You're not here to do that. You're here to do this over here. This is your contract. And so they kept pushing me in a different direction. So I'm just going to say that, like Cynthia was mentioning, it's okay to be different. It's okay not to do what everybody else is doing, because you're not supposed to. We're all supposed to bring many different modalities and many different skill sets here to the world, because it takes a million sets of eyes to be able to see clearly. So if we're all doing the same thing, we'll never see what we need to see. So I think you need to give yourself permission to stand out, be different, go against the grain, and go with what feels right. And I've always said that to all my students. If it feels right, it is right. If it feels wrong, it's wrong. It's as simple as that. Don't go off of what other people tell you to do. Don't go off of what the books tell you to do. If anyone says this is the only way, run. Because there's a lot of mentors and a lot of teachers out there that will tell you how they do it and then expect you to follow suit. And I don't think that's what teachers should be doing. Personally, I think teachers should be giving you the tools and techniques that work for a large array of different skill sets. Well, if you're dealing with one particular modality, they're going to give you tools that work with that modality. But they should never limit you to their style of work. They should never tell you that you can or can't do anything. That should be up to you and your spirit team, your soul, your higher self, but mostly your heart. It should be what feels right for you. And that was one of the hardest things I had to overcome with being a rescue medium is, I know a lot of the girls here faced a lot of resistance as well, but it was a big part of my journey to really kind of feel like I was separated from the rest of the spiritual community, because I wasn't doing the same type of mediumship that everybody else was. And not only was I different, but I was told that I was wrong. and then it was bad. And every time I'd go to spirit and I'd ask my guides, even at the highest of vibration I could possibly go to, and they kept telling me I was right and that this was what I was supposed to be doing, I had to face my fear of being judged by everybody else and just give in to what felt right for me. And I think that's hard, and having community of like-minded souls are really going to help support you. I was desperate for that developing as a younger medium 25 years ago. I was desperate to find my community and wanting to find someone who understood what I was going through. And I have to say, for every 100 mediums I'd connect to, I'd find two that could relate. And it felt lonely at times. And I think that's one of the main reasons I had such a passion for creating these shows and to write my books, is to make sure that people know that they're not alone and that there is a community here to support you in anything that you do. As long as you're working with the intention to do what feels right and to do right for others, to be helpful in some way, and you're not taking away from anyone else, then no path is wrong. And I think it's just finding peace within yourself, within the abilities and the symptoms and the signs and the things that happen to you. And I highly suggest, and I think it's a good idea, get a journal, write your situations down. Every time something happens, write it down. And then reach out to us, to other communities. I have a Facebook group. I have many different communities that I connect to. Reach out and say, hey, this just happened to me. Has anyone else had this happen? What do you think it means? Reach out, connect, and talk about it. Because the last thing you want to do is hold it in and feel alone and not do anything, because we're all in it together. We're all in it to support each other. There may not be like 101 different people out there supporting you, but if you have one person that stands by your side and says, I understand you, then it's that one person that's enough to help inspire you to keep moving forward. And it means something. But you have another 3 here that can stand right by your side and help guide you on your path. And we're hoping to do that for you. So I think there was amazing first show. I think we all gave a lot of great information. I'm hoping you all join us next time. I wrote down a list of a lot of different things we want to discuss in our next segments. Feel free to put your comments down below. Try to keep them positive. You know, even if you don't agree with everything we say, that's okay. It's good. I want you to have a different opinion. Throw us your opinion down below. Speak your mind. I want you to feel like you have a voice. I want you to feel like your opinion counts, because it does. There is no one way of doing anything. We're just helping you see things from our perspective, just to give you some extra set of tools to help you on your journey. So I want to thank everyone who joined us today. I want to thank all my co-hosts for doing this with us. I'm so excited to begin this new journey with everyone, and I'm so excited to have all of you join us. We will be presenting this every 2 weeks. We might have a few specials out on special occasions, but we'd love to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts, your feelings, and some of your concerns. We're here to help. So hopefully we will see you next time.